for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening. How you doing? It's Fade to Black. Wrapping up another week here on the show. Today's Thursday, July 11, 2024. I am your host, Jimmy Church. All right. What a week, right? You know, I am in the position to be able to say every week's a great week. They're all great. Monday, Stefan Schwartz. Tuesday, Wally Wagner. Wednesday, last night, Adam Nimoy. What a show. What a week. And tonight, Paola Harris is with us. That's right. He is back. One of my favorite people. And so tonight's going to be all UFOs all night long. What's really strange is think about the diversity of the week, right? Remote viewing. We did religion and the Bible and E.T. Last night, Adam Nimoy and his dad, of course, Leonard Nimoy, and filmmaking and life. Wow, what a conversation last night. And tonight, my favorite subject, that's right, UFOs, ET, contact, disclosure. Throw in a little time travel, too, because it's Paula. We can do anything. We're going to do that tonight. Now, I have a very busy second half of 2024 coming up. Starting in 2 weeks, I will be co-hosting the 2024 Conscious Awards in Miami, Florida. With Giorgio Tsoukalos. That is August 3rd and the 4th in Miami. Full weekend of events. We've got a yacht cruise. We've got a conference. Of course, we have the awards. I think we have a celebrity basketball game too as well. So full weekend of events. That's coming up. And then heading up to Alaska in September, Contact at Sea. It is a cruise, so come and hang out. I'm hosting that event too as well. It's going to be great. And then heading over to Egypt in October 3rd through the 14th. And it's myself and Billy Carson and Elizabeth leading that tour of 80 friends. That's right. 2 buses driving across Egypt. Come and join us. I think it's sold out, but you can get on the waiting list. And that is October 3rd through the 14th. Then down to Peru and Bolivia in November for almost 3 weeks, November 15th through the 27th. I'm going to extend it in the front and extend it in the back. But come and hang out with us. That, too, is also sold out, but there is a waiting list. We had some seats opened up last week. I let everybody know, but you guys just went and snapped those up. I think it's sold out. But you can also get on that waiting list. And it's November, so changes happen. Get on the waiting list. The links are below. I wanted to say something really quick. I don't spend a whole lot of time on social media. Okay. And most of you know that. I just don't. I have people that post for me on social media. And then you'll see the once in a while I'll post a picture of me with a friend or the Harley or something. Those kind of posts, those are for me. But anyway, so I don't spend much time on it. And today, as we were going through and setting up stuff for next week, I see this thing, or maybe it was yesterday, and it was yesterday. My memories on Facebook, I think is what it's called. I've never seen that before. Right? I'm like, what is that? So I clicked on it, and it's a picture of me at Coast to Coast from 8 years ago, celebrating the Tesla or something. wow, man, I haven't seen a picture. I hosted Coast for 6-7 years, but I haven't seen a picture or a memory. So I clicked on share, and so I shared it, which I've never done. I don't even know how that works. So anyway, but while I was doing that, I noticed over on my Facebook page that I'm following a bunch of people. Like, I've never followed anybody, right? What is that? So I just clicked on it just to see what I've never followed anybody. And there were things, these groups, the crazy. I just unfollowed. How does that happen? How can somebody get you to follow their group or their page or their thing? And there was Sports New York was in Sports New York. It was like weird. And like 50. It was strange. How does that happen? I feel that's a strange feeling, invasion of privacy, right? I don't know how that happens, and it wasn't me. So I just want to see that in the comments tonight. Have you guys ever experienced that? Social media is a trip, man. It's an absolute trip. Tonight, Paola Harris is with us. We are going to do it all. I have talked about this show all week, that the show is just called UFOs and ETs, or UFO and ET updates, because I want to be able to discuss whatever is on her mind with her research. She's been out there doing it forever, covering topics like time travel and the paranormal and advanced science and, of course, spirituality. And she was just telling me right before the show, she just got back from Japan. And I want to talk about that too as well. What is going on over there? I want to welcome back to Fade to Black my good friend. She's right here, Paola Harris. What's going on, lady?
Hi, how are you? How are you doing?
I miss you.
I miss you too, but you never stay home.
What's that? I never stay home.
You never stay home. You might as well get a traveling van.
That's kind of like you. Which you need to turn me down. You're feeding back a little bit there, just a little, not much. Just turn me down. Turn me down. Let me see if I can adjust something on my end. No, I can't. Let me do this. I will do that. Okay. Now, I want to start here, if I can, Paula. Which is, you've been researching and investigating as a journalist and photojournalist the subject for a very, very, very long time, and we have seen this community, the hopes and dreams just go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, and we're always getting closer. But now things are different, aren't they? Do you feel the same way that we have never been at this point in the history of mankind when it comes to the subject of ET?
Well, I feel like that we have no answers yet. I feel like it's still a journey. I feel like there's a lot of work to do. And I also feel like a lot of work is not in the United States. You just mentioned you're going to Peru. Well, I went to Peru, to the Andes. I've been to the Chilca Desert in Peru. I've been to the Atacama Desert in Chile. I've been to Bogota, Colombia. I've been to Argentina. And now I've just been to Japan. And I find out that there is so much going on other than government disclosure, Jay, which is, for me, a distraction.
Yes, you're right. And with my audience, for those that don't have the opportunity to go out and visit different countries and different cultures, I understand that. And what I don't like doing, because it sounds like I don't want to sound like it's ego or that I'm bragging, I just went to, but I have. And when you do, like you just said, when you go out there and you see and visit and speak to other cultures and see yes, it's the sights and stuff, but there's a different take culturally on the UFO phenomenon, and it's not an American thing. We want here in America, right? We want everything to be American, right? Everything is about us. Everything is about us. And you leave the country and you find that it's simply not the case. And there's a different attitude out there, isn't there?
Yeah, can I tell you a story about a woman in Yungay in Peru? I was doing a documentary with Ricardo Gonzalez, who's a contactee who has had physical contact with ETs coming off ships. And we were doing this documentary, and we were in this little town in this little bed and breakfast. And I walked into the kitchen, and this lady was making us sandwiches. And I pointed to the mountain, Huascaran, and I said, I hear there's an ET base in that mountain. And I said, did you ever see them? And she said to me, oh, yes, my husband sees them on the trail. They're people. She said, and then she said they came to talk to my children when my children were 10 years old in their bedroom. Well, you can imagine how shocked I am. And she continued making sandwiches. And I thought, she doesn't even care. I mean, here, if it was here, they'd have their own TV show, they'd have their own,
Right.
podcast. This lady's making sandwiches, and she goes, it's normal. They talk to my children at 10 years old. And I'm going, you're kidding. I can't believe this, that it's so normal. It's not entertainment. It's not extra. They believe their ancestors came from the stars the way that the Native Americans, the Lakota and those people believe their ancestors came from the stars.
It's so strange. I was in Peru and staying at this little hotel out, it's literally in the middle of nowhere. But at this hotel, they had a hot chocolate shop, and Peruvian hot chocolate, that's a game changer, isn't it? That'll change your life, right? So we spent 3 days there. And the first night after dinner, I'm like, I'm gonna go check out this hot chocolate shop. That sounds really good. So I go in, and there's a girl there behind. It's like a bar. It's a hot chocolate bar, right? Anyway, so I go up, and she goes just like that, shakes her head, and she goes, You're not going to believe this. I said, oh, you speak English? She goes, I do. She takes her cell phone and she spins it around, and she's watching Fade to Black, right? in Peru, right? And I just walk in the door at 10 o'clock at night, right? After dinner, 9 o'clock at night. So anyway, so that was a trip for both of us. But I asked her, because we are in the middle of nowhere. I go, you ever see anything out here? She goes, every night. I go, every night, every night out here, there's something to see. And you're exactly right. And she was so nonchalant about it, right? And just very open. It's just like, just every night. It's just like, wow. And outside of the United States. And but here's a trippy thought. Now, I like to look at you as European, Italian. You're cosmopolitan, you're international. That's you, right? Okay. I go to England last year. I spent a couple of weeks there. And I was asking the people on the street and everybody that I was around about disclosure. and how the government there was handling it, and if it was anything like what was going on with the, with Congress and the Senate and the Pentagon over in the United States. And they go, nope, nothing, no action over here. And I didn't hear that from one person. I heard that from everybody. And I was really surprised about that. I thought that Europe is certainly with France and the things that have happened in Italy, that it would be more. Is it different in Italy than it is like in the United Kingdom? Are they more open?
Well, what it is it's different in big cities. UFOs don't feel like flying over big cities and talking to people. They are in remote areas. So where I have had the most action is in the Alps, in the Swiss Alps and in the Italian Alps, where I talk to groups of people who do hiking, who are, if you want to have contact, you got to go to a remote area. They do not want to go anywhere near cities. So the people that are doing the hiking in the Alps, and I remember this very clearly, and as I was hiking with them, we photographed in broad daylight a UFO that was following us in broad daylight. So my advice to people that want that kind of contact is no, it's going to come from the ground up, not the top down. So forget the governments of any country. They don't have a stake in it. Why in the world are they going to tell you the truth now? If you want contact and you want and by the way, when you told me she had that phone and she had fade to black, I hope you thought about that, because that is the language the ETs use, coincidences. So
Sure.
so when you heard that, you ought to know the ETs were talking to you because she had the phone there. And at the same time you walked in. Okay, so the only way the ETs talk to me is crazy, insane synchronicities that I say they couldn't possibly know. How could they know I was here? Or how could they know I needed this? Or how could they know that, I was doing this? And the answer, Jimmy, is they know. They know if you're in this field, they're watching you, whether it's you or me or whatever. And I know that if I'm going to have any kind of sighting, I have to go to the Rocky Mountains. I have to go, I can't even explain the Atacama Desert because it's so difficult to camp there, out in the middle of nowhere in the Valley of the Moon, where there's not even one tree, in a salt desert. But I've done that. So I know how it works. So the benefit of my research, and you're doing it now, I see you all over the place, is to understand, number one, how they communicate. And number two, it's not in big cities or, where people believe, it's not in your house. They don't come to your house. I mean, I believe that they know you're searching for the truth and they give you what you need to do the work. So my work is international because, like you, I'm a searcher. I want to know. I don't have the answers. But it's a big sacrifice, especially at my age, and you know how old I am. It's really hard to camp in the desert. It's really hard for me in Japan to do all the trekking around that I did. But I want to know. So if I want to know, I have to do the work, and my job is to report the data. However, you mentioned the word spirituality, and I am 100% on board with Grant Cameron. This phenomenon is about consciousness, about waking people up, about getting your attention.
Yeah, this happened like 4 nights ago. Today's Thursday. I think it was Sunday night, and this was rare for me. It's happened, but not like all the time. But anyway, I go out. It's been really hot here. It's been hot everywhere, and so I'm going to bed. It's about 11 o'clock at night, and I'm upstairs, and I thought to myself, I wonder how hot it is outside. That's all, right? Had this thought pop in my head. So I go out on my patio off of my master bedroom. I open the sliding glass door and I step out onto the patio, and it's hot. It's like 95 degrees, right? And as I put my hands on the railing, it was the craziest thing. Look now, like this thought. And so I looked, I didn't tell me where to look, but I looked up and it was like at this angle, like at 1 o'clock or maybe 10 degrees down. It's just like this. I look up and at that moment, black sky goes, this big, bright white light. It moves a little bit to the left, shrinks down, and goes, pew, it's gone. And I went, no. And so it was really cool. But this was the perverted, crazy, stupid thought that I had. I can't tell anybody about this. I'm alone. It's just a thing. You know, if you don't have somebody with you, right, then it's just this person. It was crazy. It was crazy.
What you have to do is say, they just said hello, but they know you're working. I mean, it's like,
that's that consciousness thing, though. That's the consciousness thing that you're talking about, and Grant and everybody else. And I know, listen, Paula, I've known you for a long time. And when you or I say these things to a stranger or somebody that doesn't really have a grip of what we're talking about, we sound nuts. We do. I don't give a crap. It happened. It happened just like I said. And it's that consciousness thing, and it's real. It's real. This is not some, no, it's real. It's real. You're right. Grant is spot on.
Grant is one of the only people that's spot on. I'm doing a master class with him August 3rd. And we're going to talk about, both Grant and I are going to talk about, like in the old days when Wilbur Smith was communicating with AFA, and when these giant rock guys were on crystal radios talking to aliens until the FBI found out about it. So we've done our research back in the 50s. Back in the 50s when they were here, I mean, I don't know why they'd want to come here now, but when they were here in the 50s, and Adamski, Orfeo Angelucci, Van Tasso, all those guys were having contact. And I did the research by bringing back Robert Short. Robert Short was the last of those contactees. He knew Robert Wise, who did The Day the Earth Stood Still. And you've got the image of The Day the Earth Stood Still there. And I'm going, oh my God, did they know that came from real contact? That Michael Rennie, Robert Short told me he channeled that speech at the end of that movie. He channeled it. Robert Wise was up to his ears in UFOs in The Day the Earth Stood Still. So Grant and I are going to discuss how in the early days it was easier to have contact. And there's another thing, Jimmy. That's when the New Age started, and it was the autobiography of the yogi, Yogananda, and everybody was into the New Age. You had L. Ron Hubbard, you had all of the Est, you had all of those guys, Scientology. So I think whoever was visiting thought, oh, these humans are finally getting some Eastern philosophy, some spirituality. Of course, they made a mistake because we didn't go very far with it. It became commercial. The whole New Age became commercial. But to study the history of contact, both Grant Cameron and I have had to go back to the 1950s. And Jacques and I went back to 1945, the atomic bomb. So to study this, and I think they appreciate that we're doing it that way, because you can't take isolated cases. You have to look at the history of ufology, and you have to do the work. So yes, the first crash was in 1945, and yes, it was a response to the atomic bomb, and Oppenheimer knew. So did Einstein, and Oppenheimer wrote a letter to Truman, and also who knew was Eisenhower, because he wrote a letter to our Adamski, who's called Eugenio Siracusa, and in Italy they gave me the letter what is Eisenhower doing writing to a contactee unless he knows it's real? So there's all of this really interesting stuff, but I want to end this with saying, if you're working in this area, somebody knows, somebody up there. I mean, the government might know, but I mean, definitely the ETs know.
Here's something very, very, speaking of the 1950s, and I'm a huge Van Tassel guy, and I've got a first edition of Frank Scully's Behind the Flying Saucers. And what is interesting about that was published in 1950. And I have mentioned, many people have mentioned about the Roswell cover-up and the way that Roswell, once they did the weather balloon thing, the story disappeared until 1980, and Stanton Friedman and everybody else that started to investigate Roswell, and Jesse Marcel and so forth. Okay, so that we had this big blank spot between 47 and 80. Nobody mentioned, not in any documentaries, it's not in any books, it's not there. They did a real cover-up on it, right? So check this out. I'm reading Frank Scully, 1950. And now I have gone and looked and tried to find any reference to Roswell between 47 and 1980, 81, 82. It doesn't exist. Frank Scully says in Behind the Flying Saucers, I'll get the exact page. It's upstairs in my bedroom. He says this, and I went back, and this happened over the last 2 days. I've reread this and reread this. He says he has a scientist, this is 1950, that has been talking to him about crash recoveries, specifically Aztec, New Mexico. Now, I went, wait, what? And so I continue reading. He mentions Aztec 3 times in the book. Now, he doesn't say Roswell, but nobody else mentions Aztec either, right? That all came as, you know what I mean? You followed the history of this. But somebody was talking to Scully about crash retrievals in 1950 in Aztec, New Mexico. And I think everybody needs to go back and revisit Behind the Flying Saucers by Frank Scully and check this out. That book was dismissed. There's a lot of factual stuff in there, but that he was misled by a couple of people. Okay, that may be fine. But that reference is there. That deep history that you're talking about and the contactees and what was going on in the 1950s, this was a phenomenon. This was everywhere, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I was shocked that my colleagues never went to Highbridge, New Jersey to check out the Howard Menger Val Thor story. So I went with a group of people to see exactly where Val Thor was sitting in Menger's orchard. And that house is empty in Highbridge, New Jersey. It's empty. You could go there. The house is there just like in all the photos. And I have these photos from the Wendell Stevens archive. They're black and white photos. They're real. And I go with George Filer. You know Filer of Filer's Files, right? Filer's Files comes out. He's 92 years old, and he's with me and a couple of other researchers. And Filer says to me that he was an attaché for Curtis LeMay. And he said to me, when I was working in the Pentagon, and Filer was a pilot, because I spent a lot of time with him, he's in his 90s. He said, we were told that there was a spaceman in the cafeteria. He was there. He was working for Curtis LeMay. Then he tells me, when I was a young child, I had contact, he said, when I was 5 years old. And I remember, well, Menger was 10 years old. And that place is still there. And the Historical Society can tell you where the flying saucers landed because there's movies, there's photographs. And I always wonder why we can't connect these dots. that the human type ETs came in the 50s and 60s. Then you have the abduction phenomenon, 1963, and then everything goes down the tubes. Everything's little gray aliens. Well, they don't know that Dembski had a farm in Mexico City, down in Mexico. So I'm convinced that whoever came decided to forget the U.S. and they went to the people that have the biggest heart connection. And you're going to Bolivia, you'll see it. The biggest heart connection. I mean, the UFOs are coming out of Titicaca. I talked to Luis Fernando. That's a contact you should talk to. And so that Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, even Colombia, when I was in Colombia, those people had contact with human type ETs that we had in the 50s that I think decided to leave, including, I told you about the High Bridge, New Jersey thing, because I hope people get hold of Filer. I hope you interview him while he's still alive. He's 92, and he'll tell you exactly what he lived through. And he's a reputable person. He worked in the Pentagon. He was a pilot. He said that when he was flying, he saw a UFO the size of a football field. I mean, pilots are the best witnesses of all this.
Yeah, today, we have you, and we've got Dolan, and we have Linda, and just great researchers, and you mentioned Grant, but that's in the now. Everybody that is interested in this subject, when I say everybody, I mean everybody. There's some required reading and research you need to do. You need to go back and read Donald Kehoe stuff. You need to go back and read Leonard Stringfield stuff. You need to go back and James McDonald. You need to go back, to Frank Scully and look at George Van Tassel is one of the most amazing figures in the history of this country. Exactly. Go and listen to his record, and I'm sure you've heard them. He went around the Rotary clubs here in LA in 52, 53. Those recordings are on the net and preserved by the Rotary Club where they used to have these meetings. And go and listen to his presentations. They're 2 and 3 hours long. I can't believe we're so lucky that they had tape recorders running and captured that. But go and see how these great researchers were looking into the subject and the way that they spoke about it back then. I think it's just as important and relevant as anybody's work that's done today.
Well, that's the problem, is if you're a researcher, you got to do it all. You can't just look at today.
Right, I know.
And nobody reads. However, you just mentioned the books and Leonard Stringfield was the best of all. He was incredible. He did so much. When I met Leonard, let me tell you the story of Leonard. I was with Alan Hynek in Chicago at a conference, and this guy comes up to Alan, and he's tall and skinny, and I said, "Who's that?" He's got an attaché case chained to his wrist.
Right on.
I said, and Alan says, "Well, that's Leonard Stringfield. He has actual photos of the Roswell aliens given to him by doctors." And I said, "What?" Man. Oh my God. At the time, I didn't know who the heck he was. At the time, I didn't know who Ed Dembski was. I didn't know who anybody was. And so later on, I began reading his books. He had incredible research. And in order to understand the history, and by the way, I'm so glad you call it history, because when I say my book, Connecting the Dots, it's not a UFO book. It has 38 interviews. And I'm the only one that ever interviewed Kenneth Arnold's daughter and family of Kenneth Arnold. It's in that book. But Connecting the Dots is history of the planet. It is not a UFO book. It's what happened during those years. It doesn't matter that it's UFOs. It could be anything. I mean, remote viewing is part of it. Edgar Mitchell, astronaut, is part of it. And, Even Paul Hellyer, who was part of it, John Mack is part of it. All these people are in my book. And it's very, very important that people get the information, not from opinion, but from the horse's mouth. And you're one of the only people that I've ever talked to that reads. It's amazing.
I can't stop. That's all I do is research, and I've done it my entire life. This isn't anything new. I'm not doing it for the show. If I didn't write, if I wasn't a host or TV and all that other stuff that I do, I would still be researching this subject like I have my entire life. And speaking of Lenny, right, Stringfield, check this out. 1944. This is from military records. 1944. Over the Pacific, World War II, approaching an American airfield at an island near Japan, right? UFO sighting, radar, the plane is coming in, the radar operators at the airfield contact the pilots, and they say that they've got 3 objects that are moving at about 2,000 miles per hour. And think about that in 1944, right? It's insanity. But anyway, and the personnel on the plane, there was 24, look out the windows, including the pilots, and they see the craft. Okay? The reports were written up. It's documented. Three radar stations, 3 crafts, the personnel on the plane and the pilots, and they didn't know what they saw. Guess who was on that plane? Leonard Stringfield. You look at the list of the personnel and you're like, oh, so you wonder why he was so locked on with this. Right. But you go through an experience like that, and that's your life. That's your path. That's your journey now.
Exactly. We're hooked. In fact, the story, poor Paul Hellyer had just gotten married in 2005. He told his wife, I'm never going to talk about this one time. Let me just have my 1 minute. And he got obsessed with it. Everybody that has had any kind of conscious contact is obsessed. The only thing is, it's not about the phenomenon, Jimmy. It's about us. It's about us. And that's what Robert Dean used to say. I loved Robert Dean. God bless him. Robert Dean was in Brussels in NATO, and he came to Italy a lot. He lived there for 15 years. I even had Jesse Marcel Jr. at my house with his family. I had them all there. Linda, Richard, Robert Dean, everybody. But I got to talk to Robert Dean, and he said, Paula, these photos were coming across Brussels in the 1960s, and the Russians thought they were our stuff, and we thought they were their stuff, and we almost started a war. So if you think that this isn't serious, I want to see who wants to laugh at that.
You bring up the best point of all. And I'm happy that we have this new generation of people coming in and TV shows like Ancient Aliens and the awareness and what is going on. I appreciate all of that. But you said it earlier, you cannot come into this fresh and try to learn it all. You can't. There's way too much stuff. There's just too much stuff here. Right. And when we go and we analyze and we talk about these things, most people that are into the subject today think it's a modern phenomenon. Like right. They just think this is all new stuff. And it's simply not the case, is it? This goes back. Now, you just got back from Japan.
Yes.
How do they look at this over there? What's the attitude like?
By the way, I'm going to show the Japanese book. Connecting the Dots is in Japanese. You have to open it the opposite way, but it's all characters. And what they have experienced, since their culture accepts this, what they have experienced during Fukushima is incredible UFO sightings. So they have already integrated into a thinking that is kind of anthropological. They don't think it's entertainment. They don't look at it as entertainment. It's fun. Let's get together and have UFO parties. Let's dress up. They don't do that. The sightings over Fukushima, and there's, I think, a movie on Netflix where the monk that is in the monastery is talking about this. About
that's Steven Spielberg's new series. It's called Encounters, and
exactly.
it's an amazing segment, the Fukushima segment.
It's an amazing segment. Well, that's happening there. So what that is, I mean, is two things. Number one, to get the attention of the people, and number two, to be in hotspots of the world. I think people don't know, but I know that because I've talked to Heine, all kinds of videos are coming in from Ukraine. All kinds of UFO sightings in Ukraine. Well, I don't think they're on vacation there. And that's my favorite phrase that I use. I don't think they're on vacation. I think that they're watching what's going on in the planet for two reasons: to see if we survive it, to see how we handle it, and number three, the consciousness element, to wake people up. People need to wake up because they have a lot of power. They can change things just with their thoughts, you know that, with remote viewing and everything. They can change things with meditation, with, Edgar Mitchell told me he did experiments from the moon, and they worked. So for God's sakes, if your thoughts work and you do experiments from the moon, that means that we can change a timeline, or we can change events if we're aware of them. If we are aware of them. So Fukushima is about nuclear. Trinity was about nuclear. I mean, those beings at Trinity knew that we were going to write a book. They knew way back when that this would come out. Otherwise, why crash? So the thing is that you have to look at the nuclear. And of course, Clifford Stone talked to me nonstop about Vietnam. So I thought, oh my God, this is getting so complicated. My job is only to report the data, but I went to Japan for some spiritual energy also, because I went to the Kyoto, to the temples, I went to the shrines. I tried to see how the indigenous people thought about spirituality, and it's Eastern culture, so it's different from Italy, which is, Western culture. It's even different from Egypt if you go to Eastern cultures.
The observation over things like Europe in World War II and the Foo Fighters, or Vietnam, or Iraq, and right now it's Ukraine. I often wonder what ET thinks about our evolution. It's kind of like they probably get the same feeling that we do when we see two 4-year-old boys fighting over a toy truck in the sandbox. And it's like we would be that juvenile to ET, shooting projectiles at each other. It's just,
the worst part about it is we're killing women and children. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They are looking at that level of evolution. It just must.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, I try not to spend a lot of time there, because it makes us realize we haven't grown up yet. However, it can be changed. We have to have hope. And it can be changed by very few people. It's the 100th monkey thing. You remember the monkey that washed the potatoes? Monkey washes the potatoes. We have to wash potatoes so that the younger generation does not repeat the mistakes. And I think sometimes, like the flyovers of Vietnam and Ukraine and so forth, I think that that's just to get our attention. And don't ask me which ETs they are, because if Colonel Corso's telling me they have 57 different species, and Clifford Stone's telling me he saw a manual with 52, or the other way around, the thing is this, that I don't know who it is, or if it is, or if it's a simulation, or if it's us. And it gets really complicated, doesn't it?
Well, see, if Clifford and I hear these references all the time, 48, 52, 53, 71, 72. If that's the number that people can get to, then the real number is 70,000. It's 60,000. There's no way that there are only 63 different species, races, civilizations visiting this planet. No, that's crazy talk. There's so much life out there. And here's the other thing. In your research, does it surprise you that we see more different things than we see similar things? Right? And why people are why are we seeing this? Well, wait a minute. Why would you expect for everybody to have the same exact experience, or see the same exact craft, or have the same exact conversation, or see the same type of beings, or see the same? Why do you expect that when there's all this life in the universe? I would say that if everybody saw something different, then that's probably closer to the truth, because that's how much we're getting visited, right?
Yeah, but it's also, I think we're being brainwashed by our own people. I think that the media, I don't see anything but little gray aliens here in the United States, and that's not what I saw in Latin America. There were none. It was all space brothers, what they call Hermanos Celestiales, the space brothers come and talk to us. There wasn't the cult that we built around ufology. We built a cult, we built a thinking. So we built a box that we have to put it in or we'll go nuts. And my qualifications are, the good thing about me is I don't know what's happening, so I have no box. I don't know what the devil is. So you can tell me it's a simulation, or that that we did it, or you can tell me all of that, and I will allow for all the above, because if I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. But people go crazy. They put it into a religious box. In fact, the funniest thing of all, Jimmy, when I used to do Coast to Coast, the only phone calls I used to get is people telling me that it was the devil and all the minions of the devil, and the devil was coming with all his people. And I didn't have an answer for that. So that was the box that they could put it in. And I'd say, thank you for sharing. That was the only thing I could say. Just thank you for sharing, because I can't have an answer to these things. I can only do the work and raise my own consciousness. When I was in Japan, I met with 4 journalists from the Japan magazine, and they were shocked that I knew as much as I knew. And they asked my collaboration, but what they showed me, and go on my website, is that Chris Mellon had already addressed the Japanese caucus. So I'm going, why did he talk to Japan? And the answer is he tried to talk here and it didn't go anywhere. But so they said, thank you, Paula, for mentioning that, because your eyes are all over the world and you're trying to connect us. And I'm going, yeah, I really herald all the people that are in the disclosure movement. I do not herald this subject as being entertainment. It's the history of this planet. All this stuff is real. And I feel like saying, it's real, get over it. It's real.
It's nature. See, that's the thing. Who has the right? The answer is nobody. But who has the right to keep nature secret from us? Nobody. That's I don't get that. I don't get that. What is it? I understand the technology part, and so I would say, and I know that you talked about this, and you and I have talked about this privately too as well. But I would say this: if I was the government, I would play it safe. I would tell the truth. And this is the truth. This is what they should say. They should say, I remember saying this at your conference on stage, right? You were there. But this is what I would say. E.T. is visiting us. We are not alone.
Right.
But we have technology that we're going to keep secret. It's that simple. And I think that all of us would go, okay, all right, that's the truth. Okay, somebody's speaking the truth, and we would be okay with that. I would, I would be. Keep this. If you got tech that you need to keep from the Russians or keep from terrorists, or okay, I get that. You want the edge up? Okay, all right, that's fine. But at least that's the truth. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, there's a problem with government in that, first of all, that happened. 1997, Colonel Philip Corso told the truth. He was in the Pentagon. He did work for General Trudeau. He did brief Robert Kennedy. I have a book called Conversations with Colonel Corso. Word for word audio tape what he said to me, because I got his permission. He told me exactly, I'd seen bodies, he did this, but he said it was for the Army, Jimmy. So what, if it was for the Army, then what do we got going with the Air Force and the Navy? Are they all in competition for contracts? He said, to enhance the competitive edge of the Army. And I thought, well, we have three things going on. We've got the Navy and the Air Force. I have no doubt it was the Air Force had that stuff. 1945, it went to Los Alamos. So, and there was no, separation then. But the thing is, if they're competing for contracts, it's more complicated, number one. Number two, who's the government? It changes every 6 years. Colonel Corso said, Paul, stop using the word the government. Who are you referring to? The senators, the president, who are you referring to? So I didn't understand that it is not the government, it is the micromanagers of the phenomenon. In other words, there is a micromanagement that has nothing to do with the government that really is the one behind this. And I don't care. That to me is a waste of my time. I don't care who they are. I don't care what they're doing. I don't care about the technology. I care more about the messages we're getting about ecology, and that's what you're going to get when you go to Bolivia, that the contactees are going to talk about our ecology, that we're in trouble, global warming, in big trouble, and they have other messages from South America. I care more about that than I care about, government telling the truth, because if we can change the status quo, then we have a chance of survival on this planet. If we can do the 100th monkey and wash a potato.
Yeah, for sure. And that has always been my attitude. But what I have found is that when I express that, right, whether on the show or in public, speaking and stuff, when I say that I get booed. And the reason why I get booed is because the majority of people need that type of disclosure. They need it from the White House. Nothing else besides a live broadcast from the Oval Office. We are not alone. And I understand that. I totally get that. They need that. Anything less it's for their friends and family and everything else, then it becomes just it's just the same old, same old. So that's my take. So I get why people want that. And you're right though. Bolivia, the last time I was there, that was one of the most mind-blowing experiences of my life. But it wasn't just Bolivia. I had, and I know you've seen this. So at Marumuru, you know, the portal, right? On the side of the okay, so that portal, it's got a shape. And we've all seen that shape. But I started to see that shape in different countries. It's on the back of the H blocks in Pumapunku. It's in the Sacred Valley. It's in the Nazca Lines. It's also in Karnak in Egypt, right?
Right.
And it's at Gobekli Tepe. Then I turn around and I see it at Tiwanaku. And Tiwanaku, which is across the street from Pumapunku, the archaeologists there will tell you that Pumapunku and Tiwanaku are not related, even though you can hit Pumapunku with a rock from Tiwanaku if you got a good arm, right? It's right there. You can see it, right? But they want to insist there's two different cultures. But if you look really close, things are identical there. And so when you see that, you realize that not only were they preserving something for us, but these cultures that are alive there today, that stuff gets handed down. It gets handed down a generation after generation after generation. They know their history. They understand it. We don't have history in the United States, so we don't have a way to relate to that.
That's the box. We don't have the box to put it in, so people put it in a religious box or psychotic box, or you can't have a box. You can't there are, again, you have to study it like you're studying anthropology, geology. The only reason I do that is because I'm a teacher. I've been teaching high school English and ancient cultures. I've been teaching history. I've been teaching Shakespeare. I've been teaching for 40 years, so I have an academic mind. I have to do it that way. I have to study it. I have to connect it. Because for me, what people call ufology, or whatever the cult is of ufology, is an academic study. You know, my stuff is at Rice University, because I just want the people to have the audio of the source talking. I want all the source materials in a university. So maybe someday we won't have this struggle. And it's so exciting for you to talk about Latin America. It's exciting because you, with media, with your show, can show the whole 360. We don't just stay with UFO sightings or abductions or anything. You can weave the pattern of this is not new, folks. It's just we never knew about it. And this is normal in other countries that have a cultural history. Now, if you wanted to do the United States, you'd have to go to the indigenous people, the Lakota. Mm-hmm. You'd have to go to the Cheyenne. You'd have to go to all the indigenous people of whom we took away their land. I mean, talk about nature. I didn't realize until I went to Devil's Tower. I went to Devil's Tower because Close Encounters awakened me. It was the awakening for me. So I said, I'm going to Devil's Tower, Wyoming. And I didn't realize that the white man called Devil's Tower, Devil's Tower. There's the box. The real name of that structure is Bear Mountain. And the real story, and Spielberg knew this, was that the bear is climbing up the mountain, chasing after the seven sisters for the Pleiades. And so I'm in Peru, and everything is the Pleiades. The Pleiades bowls, the Pleiades reflected. So we do have that history if people want to go there. Because even Devil's Tower, we named Devil's Tower. Why do we have to name it Devil's Tower? The Native Americans are calling it Bear Mountain, and they always did.
Can I ask you a question really quick? Yeah. I have always thought, and I watch Close Encounters of the Third Kind at least once a month. I do. It's just like nothing. Let's just go. And I watch it. I watch it beginning to end. It's just anyway. And I thought the same thoughts when I first saw the movie when I was a kid. Devil's Tower looks like a tree stump. Yeah. And I've often thought that could it be petrified wood? Could it be the remnants of a giant 5,000-foot tree that was on this planet? Now it's petrified. And am I the only one that sees it that way? Because now I can't unsee it. It looks like a tree stump. No, it doesn't hit you that way? It doesn't hit you that way?
Possibly a tree stump. It is. Whatever it is, it's sacred.
Yeah, it looks like a tree stump. Okay, so now hopefully you'll never be able to unsee that. Every time you see it from now on, you'll go, man, church is right.
No,
you
like
did it. Stump.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like a tree stump. Paula, let's take our break right here. We'll be back right after this. Our guest and I, Paola Harris. We are doing UFOs and ET updates and conversation all night long. Stay with us. This is Fade to Black. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Hi, this is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I want to invite you to come to Alaska with me on the Contact at Sea cruise. It is this September 6th through the 13th, 2024. We are on the largest ship in the Pacific Ocean. That's right, the Ovation of the Seas. It's an amazing cruise, and a ship this big is so much fun. We've got lots of activities and lots of great speakers. We are leaving from Seattle to Sitka, Alaska, Skagway, Juneau. We're going to end the cruise in Victoria, BC, and arrive in Seattle on September 13th. We've got a lot of amazing speakers, including we've got Seth Shostak, Scott Walter, Stephen Bassett, Daniel Sheehan, Daryl Sims, Mas Adi, Vivian Chavez, Grant Cameron, Geraldine Orozco, Nisha Johnston, and Melanie Aguirre, and a whole lot more. All you have to do is go to divinetravels.com. You can also go to contactatsea.com. Both are going to take you to a full event schedule. You can check in, look at the boat, get things ready to go, and maybe get a cabin with a balcony. That's what I'm talking about. Come see the whales. Come check it all out. Let's go to Alaska this September 6th through the 13th, 2024 with me, Jimmy Church. Now, when you head to divinetravels.com or contactatsea.com and get signed up, you know what? Use my name, Jimmy Church. I'll see you there September 6th through the 13th, 2024. Let's go to Alaska. this is Jimmy Church. Please visit and explore Egypt this October 3rd through the 14th, 2024 with Billy, Elizabeth, myself, and very special guest and the #1 podcaster in the world, Sean Kelly. It's simple to do. Just go to forbiddenknowledge.com and click on upcoming tours, or click on the link below. We'll see you there. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's fade to black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Beckley Teppy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church, wrapping up another amazing week here on the show. Tonight, Paola Harris is with us. And Paula, earlier in the show, you mentioned, I'm going to paraphrase, you said that right now we're kind of stuck. We're not moving forward. Can you speak on that a little bit? Where were you going with that?
Well, I'm looking for information also. And the old days will be when I could go to a conference like in Roswell and meet a Colonel Philip Corso. Or I could, and I'm the one that did the Charles Hall case. He was in Roswell also with his books, and I realized he was telling the truth. I'm looking around here in my vicinity, in the country where I have my base. I'm in Colorado, as everybody knows, for information that will that I can look at to share with everybody. And I realized that, like you, that I have to travel again. And of course, it's really hard to travel, especially if you're in the desert or you have to go to remote places. And so my trip to Japan showed me that many of the stories that I will have to cover in the future will have to be outside the United States, and to look at connecting the dots to other countries, connecting the dots. In other words, I can do it, but not many people know I went to Japan. Not many people know about the Netflix Fukushima the Spielberg film you just mentioned. How do we tell people that the contact never stopped, that just because nothing is coming out of the United States government, it's UFO disclosure is not stuck, and that they didn't go home? How do we tell people and steer them to this study where we have new information that is academic information or journalistic information? How do we tell people? Well, the answer is, you just said it with what you're doing. You have that responsibility because you have the most access to the most UFO people. You have people aren't reading anymore, so they don't do much with books. But Jimmy, I'm throwing it right back into your lap. How do you think that we can get unstuck?
What? That's the $1 million question. Except when I look at the recent stuff that has surfaced, which includes David Grush and Fravor, and for those guys to raise the right hand in Congress and to give that kind of testimony and those kinds of statements, it's really never happened like that before. And so I see that as progress, to have different elected officials asking some pretty interesting questions. They seem to be genuinely interested and have access to information, right? And some of those questions were direct. And then the Wilson Davis document, to me, that was one of the biggest moments recently. I think that outshined. I like what the Nimitz did, and I like, that I don't buy into the videos, but what it did do is it elevated the conversation, right? I mean, it blew it out of the water. And so that part of it, I'm very excited about. It seems very tangible that these conversations are happening in a public forum, where before, and you've been through this for years and years and years, where the government went out of their way to tease and ridicule and embarrass our community. That's what they intentionally did. And now it doesn't seem to be that kind of party as much. And I appreciate that. So I don't, what I'm waiting for is it's chess moves on a board, right? And this is a crazy game of chess that's being played. And the next move is going to be an interesting one. And I'm not sure what it's going to be, but it's, how do we get bigger? What's the next move? I don't know, but it's coming, And here's another thing. All right. You bring up, since you threw it back at me, you bring up other countries. A couple of years ago, it was last year, I've been to Egypt, every year recently, and I'm heading back in a couple of months. But it was last year in the morning, early, like 6 a.m. We're all down at the Great Sphinx, and we're in the back of the Sphinx by the tail. We have 80 people back there, and I'm kind of goofing off, and I'm with Elizabeth, and we're taking selfies, and and everybody is listening to Muhammad Ibrahim talk at the back, and all of a sudden, I didn't see it, okay, because I was goofing off. That's on me, okay? I take responsibility for it, but I hear everybody go, at the same time. And I turn around and I see somebody videoing, right, with their camera. And he goes, I got it. And everybody said the same thing. Wow, like, that was a flying saucer. That was a UFO. I was like, what? So I go over. I have the video. I now have permission to post it. I'll get it out there, everybody. Don't worry, so you can see this. going in the opposite direction of the Sphinx, away from the tail towards the pyramids. Muhammad was pointing out the water erosion on the wall that we all know about, right? Okay. So he's talking about that. And behind him in the sky above the Great Pyramid, this frigging white glowing ball lights up, comes down, does a U-turn, and goes back up and disappears. And it's exactly like I'm describing it to you. It lights up, comes down, does a U-turn, follows its track, and then goes back up and is gone. And I looked at that video and I watched it like 10 times that morning on this guy's phone. He has since sent it to me, and I've got it and I've blown it up, and I don't know what to make of that. And over Giza in Egypt, right? It was mind blowing, and I don't have an explanation for that, but I see that and I realize that there's an interest here. This stuff is going on every day, and people are seeing it and looking at it differently than they have in the past. I'm talking about the world. They look at it differently now, that they know that the universe is a big place, and we probably are being visited all the time. And then I have something like this happen to me in Giza. It was bizarre. Amazing video. Amazing. Did you see the video for Mark D'Antonio?
No, I didn't. But I want to answer your question. Number one, do you think this is personal? It's not mass. It's not like mass. In other words, do you think that the UFO? Because you're mentioning personal things. I have thought a lot of stories from Latin America, including my standing over the Valley of the Moon, and I said to them, "Take my picture. I'm just going to point." And then the picture comes out, and there's a UFO at the end of my finger. But I never saw it. I never saw it. It's in the photo, but I never saw it. I said, I'm going to point. I said, take my picture as I'm pointing over the valley. So I realized the number one is personal. So what can we tell the world that, it's personal? Number two, UFOs are real, and yes, we have elevated the dialogue. We have elevated it so that we don't have to deal with it because the government said it's real, so it's real. Then it shut it down. But one of the people that's done the most for this is James Fox and his films, because James Fox in his film about the phenomenon interviewed Harry Reid, who works in the government. He was the senator from Nevada. Harry Reid did a lot. Then James Fox interviewed Symington, who was the governor of the Phoenix Lights. I mean, what do people want? Like, these are top level people. Colonel Philip Corso's not somebody off the street. Paul Hellyer, the Honorable Paul Hellyer. We have a lot of heroes. However, look at what James did, because I follow his work really well. He ends up in Virginia, down in Brazil, to cover the Virginia case, because the people are still alive that dealt with the little beings running around the town. And what is it called? The moment of contact. So maybe, Jimmy, we all have to leave, even though we cover what we can cover here. And yes, those pilots are heroes, but I don't think Colonel Corso, Robert Dean, Clifford Stone are any less heroes than those pilots. And even people like the original Roswell people. I interviewed Glenn Dennis Mortician. I interviewed Jesse Marcel Jr. He was at my house in Rome. It was easy to talk to him. I mean, what he was touching in his kitchen was not a mogul balloon. And, all of these facts are facts. It's data. I think the next question for us, and I'm going to have you think about this, is we have the data. What does it mean? What are we going to do with it? What are you going to do with all this? I mean, mentally, does it make us transform the way we think? Do we look at the world in a different way? Should there be a philosophy to accommodate this? I don't say spiritual religion or anything, but a philosophy of it should be there an academic subject that covers this, because we have all the data. I mean, Symington, Harry Reid, all the people that were involved, all the pilots are all heroes. So what is the next step? What does this all mean? And by the way, I don't have the answer, so don't ask me the answer to that.
Well, I think it's very fundamental. I think it's very easy. I think it's very simple to deduce what the next step is. We have Homo sapiens sapien. We've been here for 2,000 years, 200,000 years. Modern society depends on who you talk to and everything else. What I don't know, 200 years old, maybe. The technical side of things in evolution, 100 years old, 100 years, that's it. So what's next? What is the only thing that takes us to the next level is to get the answers to the universe. Are we alone? What is going on? That's the next. We've taken everything as far as we can go. We really have, right? We visited all of the planets in the solar system. We've now got interstellar craft out there. We've got robots on Mars. We've taken things as far as we can go right here. We've got to get to the next level. That's where we are. And I think that the world is expecting this next step up. And that's where we are. And you're right. It's about the data. I have this. I want you to see this. I had Mark D'Antonio on the show last week. He's amazing and he's great. But the night before he was on with me, Paula, he's got online observatories that are pointed to the sky right around the country, and you can go online and pick an observatory, and he's got cameras pointing at the sky that are static. And the night before he was on the show, he caught something. And for Mark D'Antonio, and you know him well, for Mark D'Antonio to say, not only to me, but to the world, okay, this freaked me out. When D'Antonio said it, because he's straight and narrow, man. He's all about the data. And he said, this one is interesting. And so here is the video. Now, it was shot in Arizona from an observatory. The camera is pointed to the sky, so you see it's a round shot because it's capturing horizon to horizon from all directions, right? 360 degrees. And on the left side, you see the Milky Way. It's bent instead of straight because it's a round lens. But what you are about to see goes across the night sky from horizon to horizon. Check this video out. And it's fast and it's also in slow motion. But check this out. Okay, so you can see the Milky Way on the left, right? You see it? There it is. There's the object. It just came across. Now watch this in slow motion. Tell me this isn't the craziest thing. Turns and goes across. It turns. Let's watch that again. Let's watch it again. Comes down. Turns. Now, when you say, it's all about the data, that's data. That's data right there.
Yeah, I love it. I can add to that in that I started to go to Crestone, Colorado during the movie Sirius. Dr. Stephen Greer did the movie Sirius. And actually, I ended up buying a piece of land in Crestone after that movie. In the beginning of the movie, there is a mothership, a huge thing that stopped right over the people when he was in C5. And from the left and from the right, came two F-16s. And the thing zips off exactly like that film. It's in the beginning of the movie series. So the way you can see that, and the way you can see that, is to go out into remote places. And you know the difference between, you have to know the difference between, Skylink, the satellites, the airplanes, and you will see that. You will see that. It's in the beginning of the movie. In fact, that was the only time everybody shed tears, because we saw those F-16s did not know where they were going. They were given coordinates. I'm sure that they were not told go after that thing. But that shows you possibly, Jimmy, that it is not safe to hang out over big cities or even over places that, you can be detected. So logically, you're not going to get a whole bunch of sightings. The reason why I like to go to Argentina, and I saw them in broad daylight in Cordoba, it's because there was no flight pattern. There was no airport. There was nothing. So you couldn't say it was an airplane. We never saw airplanes where we went. So that is data. But we have that data. We have it all over the place. Where I'm going to go now is, you have mentioned over and over again the hearings, but there was a citizen hearing. I think it was 2009. It was in Washington, D.C. I attended. It had 36 Latin American generals and people there. It was run by Stephen Bassett and Reuben Langdon. And it had European people. I think Gary Hesseline was there. Panotti from Italy was there. Everybody was there. And they gave data. And the way they gave it was they had a mock senator and Congress people there. I remember Senator Gravel in particular. Poor people, they were shocked when these generals from Latin America, Uruguay, Paraguay stood up, and they had to take an oath first and talk. People should revisit the citizen hearing. And then they said, we have a problem with UFOs over our airfields. So then we get into the national security card and become serious. We have data, because those guys have data. They said, we don't know. The pilot in Peru that went after one, Milton Torres told me he shot at one. And they can't shoot at them. They don't get them. Can't bring them down. For those pilots in Uruguay, Paraguay, Chile, and so in Latin America, it is a problem. The data is there. I don't know. We don't need American pilots to tell us they're having problems on their military bases. That's why they came to the citizen hearing. Okay, they came there. I talked to them individually, and they don't know what to do. They can't shoot at them. They don't know what to do. So I don't think it's belief anymore. I don't think it's a matter of belief. I think it's a matter of data. And I know it's a national security issue for these countries. So the next question is, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with it? I know you and I are asking ourselves that question. So then when I'm private and I sit and I go, Paula, what do you want to do? And then I think, maybe you start looking inside. Maybe we have to go internally. It's more about us than the data. I mean, obviously it was not an alien invasion. They didn't attack anybody. It's just that they shouldn't have been over that airspace. So to what lengths are they going to do to get our attention? They got your attention at the Sphinx.
Yeah, for sure. You raise such an important question and point. And my response to that, I like this. You're co-hosting the show. This is great. I love this. It takes the pressure off of me. Is this though? We have the problem that we have. It's changing, okay, but by and large, the science community well, first off, it's a funding issue always with that. And it's a political issue with that and the National Science Foundation and groups like that and so forth. But they are data driven, no matter what. And Avi Loeb has not jumped in the deep end of the pool. You're not going to sit down and talk to Avi Loeb about mantids and Nordics. It's not going to happen. That's not data for him. People's experiences are not data. He's data driven. And so, but what he is seeing is a shift in the data, and he is examining that. And when he looks at the data, it tells him it's coming from somewhere else. And that's important. The other side of it is we have the individuals that have their own experiences. And it seems to be, and this is where science comes back into play, that there's something about consciousness and what is driving the universe and the connectivity of it all. And science is starting to catch up to that now. They've always denied. They don't want to talk about consciousness. They don't want to talk. No, can't do it. But the data is now there. Things like entanglement and the multiverse and interdimensionality it's starting to come together, and it's starting to gel. And that's where I think we are. And so all of the pilots, all of the citizen hearings, David Grush in front of all of that. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. It's just stuff that's in the middle of the table that we're piling up. But the science community, which is data driven, now knows about how many exoplanets are out there. And we have the James Webb Space Telescope, and TESS is coming online, and the size of the universe. And now it's been reported that dark matter may not exist, and that the gravity issue is out of play. Well, then what is in play? What is moving stuff? Could that be consciousness? Is that what entanglement is? And that science is now moving over to the consciousness side. And ET, advanced beyond us, already knows that. And that's what I'm saying, right? So the next level, the next step for us is going to be consciousness. That's what it's. That's what ET's not going to come here and cure cancer for us or get rid of pollution or global warming. No, they're going to come here, Paul. They're going to go, dude, it ain't about numbers. It's about this. And that's what it's going to be. That's what it's going to be. That's our next step.
Thank you. I'm not co-hosting, but I'm really curious what you think. Forgive me. I'm really curious what you think, because you've done so much, and you're doing a lot of legwork right now. You're doing a lot of traveling and legwork, and I knew that it changed my reality. You can't imagine how ignorant I was in the days of Hynek. I didn't even want to talk about what was inside. All I wanted was sightings. Just give me the coordinates, I'll put them on the map.
Right. Oh, yeah. Hey, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. I'm telling you, you know what? 3 nights ago on my patio, when I looked up and saw that, I went, man, I haven't had that happen in a while. That was pretty cool. That was, so yeah, we need that. I love the sensational, man. I love the sightings, but it's going to be here. That's what ET's going to tell us. That's what ET's going to tell us. And all of those physicists, right? All those Neil deGrasse Tysons out there, they're going to have a Sunday go to meeting morning. They are. They're going to have to really, really, really look at themselves and think about how they presented these ideas of the past. Because you're right. You're so right. You go to Egypt, or you go to Bolivia, right? You go to Peru, you go to these places, and you see this stuff for yourself. And all you do is have these WTF moments. That's all you do. It's just like, what? You can see it in pictures, and you can hear people's opinions, and and fringe this and pseudo that and all, which it's everything that I believe in, all of the woo. But when you go and you smell those rocks and you see them for yourself, that's the game changer. They're hiding something from us, man. They're not telling us the truth. That's it. That's and go ahead.
You remember you hosted and you were brilliant the panel on AI. People want to go worse and go deeper into the connection between AI and humanity, and maybe some of what's coming was AI, and then it gets really, it gets really hairy when you start looking at this. You remember, and that's why I love young people. So it's going to be my message to people. Young people, please get interested in this and contact me, because people like Adam Curry, that was on that panel, that was so brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
People like Adam Curry and other people, other young people that have figured it out, because they don't go to any dogma. They don't have any rules. They haven't been brainwashed. They can open the door and think outside the box. So my call for my research is I'm asking for help from young people who have these brilliant ideas to try to connect the dots, because people like Adam Curry and non-locality, Dean Radin, the whole thing, they're like already there. They're already explaining what the phenomena is, and not having to, it's like it exists, let's explain it. And it's been the other way around. Let's first explain it, and then we'll say it exists. Then we'll say that ESP exists. Then we'll say it exists. No, I'm sorry. It was already there. You're just trying to explain it. All these amazing things that people think are magic. And this is why I love Grant Cameron, too, because he's there. He reached that point that I've reached. And I even changed the name of my Japanese book, where I was connecting the dots, making sense of the UFO phenomenon in American, in English. And it's a really good disclosure book. I changed it for Japan to Connecting the Dots, My Journey to Consciousness.
Guys, like, here's the thing with Adam. Adam, and I've known him for a long time. I've known Adam about 12 years. And I've watched him grow into this amazing person. But here's the thing with Adam. He's so friggin' smart that sometimes, and Adam, I love you, man, but I'm just going to tell it like it is. His social skills are not there. His brain is moving too much, right? But when he doesn't open up to people. Now he'll talk the facts and but he doesn't know. But when you get to know Adam like I have, he is so funny. He's so funny. Human. He's so human. And once he opens up, it's like, dude, where's this guy been this whole time? And you find out that he is just somebody trying to get to the answers. That's it. He's just the same as everybody else. He's intimidating because he's so friggin' smart. That dude flips me out. But he is just like the rest of us. He is not going to stop, and he's not swayed by other people's opinions. He's going to do his research, and he's going to follow that. Now, I wanted to ask you this, staying on the same subject. There is a change in the way that we view things. I like what you said earlier, that you used to be all about sightings, right? And I remember going, and we all did. We had this fixation of flying saucers, metal craft, little green men, right? Flying across the universe for 1 million years and arriving here at Earth. And that just didn't make sense to us. But but that's where we were. But things have changed, and we've seen it evolve. And today, we have a pretty firm grasp on the multiverse and gravity and folding space and the ideas of warp drives and interdimensionality and being able to avoid traveling for 1,000,000 years. You only travel for 1/10 of a second, right? And the interdimensionality side of this, which gets back into consciousness, is something that we're starting to understand a lot more. Not only us in the community, but the world. So that's why we see stuff appear and disappear in the sky. That explains a lot, doesn't it? And what do you think about that growth and in understanding?
Well, let me just tell you, I am going to only speak in one event this year, and that I've been invited to speak to the near-death people, the IAMS people, in Phoenix, Arizona, and that conference is in Labor Day weekend. And I'm going, what the heck am I doing speaking to near-death experienced people? And then I realize I'm a very, very close friend of Demi Lovato's, and she has talked to me about filming UFOs and seeing UFOs after her near-death experience. And then I tried to figure it. I said, well, those people went into another dimension, and they're already there. And those people, a lot of contactees had near-death experiences, Paula. So you need to go into that area because this is a dimensional phenomenon. And they're more susceptible. They're more their atmosphere, their whole paradigm's been shattered. They're dead and then they come back, and some of them even see the other side. So I have to look at that, and I gathered all the testimonies of near-death experiencers that have had UFO sightings. And in Demi's situation, she's filmed them, and a lot of them have that walking through these dimensions. And then we have to ask her. I never had an experience that made me study this except Close Encounters, and then I have to look backwards in my life because I usually ask 2 questions of contactees: tell me about your parents. And in the case of Kenneth Arnold, when I questioned his daughter, Kenneth Arnold's wife was a medium. She was, of course, the UFOs are going to pick somebody whose family is already into either mediumship, psychic ability, or able to tell the future or clairvoyance. Of course, because it is a dimensional phenomena. I was shocked when she told me that. Her interview in my book is incredible. And then, or I'll ask you about your family. I'll ask you about when you were a child, or I'll ask you if you had a near-death experience, because you just don't, you're not just born and you're into this. I mean, something happened to get your attention. So I've learned to look at it as a dimensional phenomenon. And the dimensionality of it is what drives the government crazy, because it's not black and white. It's like psychic ability, remote viewing, coincidences, consciousness, and all of this salad bowl of stuff. And you'd have to have a study group to figure this out. And you know that. You got the benefit of having all these friends. You talked about Adam and all this, where you can have these conversations. And Jimmy, I'll tell you quite frankly, that's why I want to talk to young people, because that's what I miss. I miss dialogue. I just want to talk about
it. I am so happy about the generations that are coming up. I'm so they are, and I've got friends in their 30s, and I'm 60. You're a little bit older than I, but we're both of the same. We're both of the age that we can call 30-year-olds kids. Okay, so, but when I see that, in a general sense, that generation, like 30 years old and under, the questions about ET are not questions. They're there. They're already there. They're there. They're 100%. They're all in. There's nobody that's not in, right? And we don't have, they're not going to fight amongst each other about this reality. They're not. It's a different thing. And I'm very happy about that. I talked to, my daughter's friends and their level of knowledge of, and this goes to conferences too and people that I meet, but their level of knowledge into the subject is tremendous. It's tremendous. It's strong. It's strong. I was at a conference a couple of years ago, and my daughter shows up, and she brings like 3 or 4 of her friends. They're all guys, and they look like they should be in a heavy metal band from Sweden, right? They've got the look, really cool, actually. And so anyway, one of them comes up to me and he goes, "Jimmy, that's Linda Moulton Howe over there." I go, "Yeah, it is. Good on you." He goes, "Can I meet her?" And I go, "Yeah, this 25-year-old kid lost his mind," right? And so we went out to lunch, and we're all sitting at the table, and the questions that they were asking me were as valid and as insightful as anything that you have ever heard. And it just made me feel good. Like, I'm not worried. I'm not worried, man. I'm not worried. You and I have a few mutual friends that are of that age group. Not to mention any names, but you know who I'm talking about. And they are as smart as anybody that you and I know. They know the subject, don't they?
Yeah, because they haven't been brainwashed. I mean, do you know how long it took me, even working with Hynek, to even accept the fact that there might be contact? Because when I was working with Alan, he was a strict astronomer. He even told me, he said, "There's no way we can travel into outer space, and you have to stack this many cards, side by side to get to them." And I thought, I don't think it works that way, Alan. I think there is a hidden technology where there's some kind of time travel thing that we haven't touched yet. And if you want to know what gave me the biggest headache, was time travel. That gave me, because I couldn't wrap my mind around it. I'm illogical. So
why is that? Why is that? Why is that?
Because I have to take away the structure of time to know there is no time. You want to play with that?
I want to play with that right now.
Yeah, look
I think about this constantly.
Well, there is no time. We're in the present all the time, which means, but the Eastern cultures know this. They say there is no past, there is no future. There's only the present you created, but that's beautiful because you can change it. There's nothing hard and fast. So if we just live in the present, we can change it because the possibilities are infinite. It's so cool. Don't you think it's cool?
Well, see, but I do. And for those out there that the big name physicists, they need to they all, point to Einstein and the facts and the theories and the laws of physics. They truly forget Einstein's position on this and time travel and how things not only are possible, it's just that it's the way they are. It's the way the universe works. And that's it. That time travel, Yeah, H.G. Wells and the Time Machine, and I get all of that. I do, and I love those movies and books. I do, but that's no, time travel's real. It's real. It's real.
When I was in Latin America and we were talking about the Punians, because I was with Ricardo Gonzalez, they already knew that there was going to be an earthquake and part of Huascaran was going to break off. This is in the book, Ricardo's book, Contact from Planet Apu. They already knew, so they went to the hydraulic plant and said, and they were dressed in ET clothes, the jumpsuit with the big belt and they said, get the people out of that city because the mountain's gonna, part of it's gonna break off and there's gonna be an earthquake. And Vlado Kapitanovich, who was the head of the hydraulic plant, tried. He tried. That actually happened. And I'm walking over the bodies of 45,000 people that they didn't even bother to individually bury. They just threw dirt over the whole city. Well, how did the Punians that have the base in Huascaran know that? They would have had to know the future. They would have had to, they were warning. How many warnings have we had?
A lot.
But I'm telling you
a lot. Look no further, and I love this, especially with the archaeologists and the anthropologists, the orthodox version of them. Look no further than Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe, 12,000 years ago, was deliberately buried. What kind of fortune-telling black magic voodoo was happening that they could look to the future, and they needed to bury that site because of something that was about to happen? And we all know what happened at 10,500 BC, the end of the last ice age, the great floods, the massive climate changes. Egypt went from green to sand, right? All this happened all at the same time. And somebody said something to them. They knew the future, and it's right there. When you talk about data, right? How much data do you need? Just look at that and explain it to me. Explain it. Tell me the truth. And why is it that, Paula, that we have to constantly, we have the facts, right? We have the facts. We have sightings. We have dates. We have Göbekli Tepe or the pyramids or Puma Punka. We have the facts, but
yeah.
we can never get to the truth. The truth is behind the facts somewhere, right? And we can never get to it.
Yeah, but I want to remind everybody, even though the Trinity situation, that changed the whole history of the planet. The atom bomb, the ability to put nuclear into space, the ability to just bomb people out. I mean, those are realities. And you think somebody's not interested in that? The 10 years that I worked on Trinity, the Trinity Keys, I realized that was a warning, just like the earthquake was a warning. They're warnings. Where do you want to go with this? You can't put the genie back in the bottle. Where do you want to go with this? It's always in our hands. Nobody is controlling it but us. And it's really interesting because starting back at the July 1945 it changed. Talk about dimensions. It changed everything on the planet. Even today with the wars, even today with putting nukes into space, it made us a civilization that's a little bit, irresponsible.
Well, it also showed ET, right? So ET is, keeping their eye out, all of them. Okay. They figured out fire. Okay. They got the wheel. Okay. All right. We're still safe, right? Okay. They're figuring out electricity. Oh, okay. Hold on a minute here, right? Let's look a little closer. They're talking about atoms now. There's this guy, Einstein. They're talking about quantum. They are right? And that
Right.
certainly, when you're right about that. When Trinity happened, Oppenheimer with his goggles, right? When Trinity happened, that's where ET just stepped back and go, okay, now we need to pay attention. Okay, this isn't rubbing two sticks together, trying to create fire. This is a whole nother thing. You're absolutely right. It changed things. And not only your book with Jacques, Trinity, and that event that happened out there, it was going on all over New Mexico. And not only, Roswell and Aztec, but up at Los Alamos, they installed 3 radar stations up there because the scientists were seeing green craft in the sky constantly. So they installed the radar stations to triangulate what was going on. And that's up in Albuquerque, right? And so ET was definitely 100% watching our progress, because what we did between 38 and 45, think about that. 6 years, and we made that kind of leap. It's absolutely incredible.
But even worse, and it's in my book, Connecting the Dots, Teller is sitting there, if you watch the movie Oppenheimer, and he's going, that bomb isn't strong enough. We're going to have to do an H-bomb. And he goes, I don't want to work on the A-bomb. I want to work on the H-bomb. Well, my biggest problem when I was in Italy was that I was robbed when I was interviewing Guy, and it's in my book, who was on the island of Fangatofa when France did 800 H-bomb tests in the water, killed all the coral, the fish, everything. 800, couldn't we do 4? That's just France. The United States did 1,400 in the Atlantic, and then India did a few. So the thing is this: the teller is arguing with Oppenheimer because the bomb is big enough. And then we're testing the H-bomb in the Pacific, and we wonder about tsunamis. Well, Guy that was there told me that during that time, the 2 times he was there, that UFOs, and they were green balls, flew over the runway. They did nothing to the testers. And when I went to film Guy, my apartment was broken into in Rome to get the film footage of his testimony, but it's in my book. So did that conversation in the movie Oppenheimer, that the A-bomb is not big enough, that we have to do the H-bomb, the thermonuclear bomb. I'm going, are people nuts? Are we crazy? And to kill all the fish and the coral to test it? And then Colonel Corso is telling me we were going to test a bomb on the moon in Project Horizon. I'm going, I can't live with this insanity. I can't live with it. It's crazy. It's crazy. You're talking about what ET thinks of us? The atomic bomb was nothing. The H-bomb and the testing in Nevada, all that testing stuff that went then into the forest where Travis Walton was, because I asked Travis the obvious question: why in the world would you have a UFO here in the middle of? Well, all the fallout from that testing was causing leukemia and everything else near Shoho, Arizona. And so the UFO is there testing the atmosphere of all the testing coming out of Nevada that was right after the Trinity. So people should understand we're insane race of people. Even the argument that Teller had with the movie and then he gets up and walks away with Oppenheimer. So yeah, but I don't want to leave on a negative note. I believe in the young people. I think we should have something concerning young people. I think that if we think positive, that the hundredth monkey situation really works, that in the universe, our positive thinking, our wanting to change, our having a vision for change will really happen, and that UFOs are real, then we have to ask ourselves what part we want to play in it.
That's the next level. Paula, thank you so much. And I miss you. We need to get together and hang out soon. Your links are below. Everybody, all of Paula's books, everything that you need is below. I want you to be safe, young lady, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Bye.
Good night. What a perfect way to end the week. That is absolutely perfect. What a perfect conversation. And now I get to start my weekend tonight. All right. And I'm going to go and do just that. Next week, I've got a slight programming change. I'm going to let everybody know Wednesday day and Wednesday night, I will be filming on location. So we are moving Wednesday night over, and I think Friday night we will also have a special show. Okay, so there you go. That's what's going on. No show Wednesday of next week, and no news. I will be out on location. What I'm doing, I'll make that announcement a little bit later. But until then, everybody have a great, safe, fun, amazing weekend. Go Backley Tappy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go Backley Tappy.